I'm Allison Rogers. I just graduated as a senior and I just walked.
And I'm Langston Rogers.
So I'm Stephanie Rogers. We're from Hattiesburg, Mississippi, and Allie has been at Veritas now for 4 years.
That was actually me.
So we were coming out of COVID, and Allie went back to brick and mortar school and came home, and she's like, "Mom, this is not for me." And we were like, "Well, I don't have time to homeschool you."
She works a full-time job.
And so that Thanksgiving, she spent her whole Thanksgiving break. She did research.
Made a PowerPoint.
Yeah, she made a PowerPoint presentation because we were not real keen on pulling her out of school. And it was pretty obvious pretty quickly what was the right fit for our family. We wanted her to have live classes. We wanted her to have live teachers. We wanted her to have live students, something she could interact with. And also
I needed the accountability also of a teacher and actual submissions for homework.
And also something that was structured.
Very much. Yeah. Something that was structured. We kept her active in local things. So she still did archery.
And I actually got more active with my church and with friends because I wasn't burnt out as badly after school. Because I relearned after I get really burnt out in an in-person school.
In the very beginning, it was challenging to transition from a private Christian brick and mortar school to the Veritas, just structure. We went full diploma from the beginning. We wanted to make sure she graduated with a diploma and one that could be very marketable for her as she was looking at colleges.
And for me, it was one, what she was taught. Number two, what she wasn't taught. And number three, as business owners in multiple cities, her school was transportable. So she could travel with us.
Which became very, very helpful this past year with my mom because she was diagnosed with cancer. Was that in the middle of junior year?
Yeah, I was diagnosed with cancer a little over a year ago. And so it gave us the flexibility that with treatment, with whatever was going on, we could be wherever, whenever, and Allie could hop on. So, God prepared those paths for us ahead of time, for sure.
Probably just like trying to get used to everything's online. So it was a lot of technology stuff. We'd used Microsoft Teams at my old school for COVID. So Adobe and Microsoft Teams are two totally different beasts. But after I learned it, Adobe was a lot simpler to use.
Yeah, I think probably your biggest learning curve the first year was getting used to the technology, definitely, and then the curriculum. It's definitely a much more rigorous curriculum. I don't know any other way of saying this, but that when she started, he and I looked at each other and we're like, wow, this is a really challenging curriculum. It feels more like what we did in college. But coming out of COVID and the world going wild and us going through something we never expected, we were looking at, there's a true possibility she won't be able to go to college. We don't know what's going to happen in this world that we live in. But with the education she receives through Veritas and the rigor and just the way she's taught to think for herself and to really analyze everything she's being told as to the truth and what's just propaganda, just really learning the rigors of study and breaking things down. She's so much further ahead of people who've been through an entire college curriculum. And so we felt really good about that.
The way it's structured is more college based than high school based. So she, in my opinion, will have a jump start.
Very much.
When she goes to college.
Very much.
I love Miss Susan Jamonti. She's been amazing and a humongous help, especially with these last couple years.
Yeah, definitely. So our academic advisor was someone that we could go to. She did life with us, if that makes sense. She knew our situation. She knew that I was running a business and I could just spot check Allie. And so that if anything was going on that I just missed, I would get a text or an email and say, hey, I want to make sure you're aware of this. And when we had struggles, she was great for helping us find someone to tutor Allie and to mentor Allie and just help her move along. And then also when we ran into anything where we might not fit the box, we were given very reasonable accommodations. And so that was a big help. And then, as Allison mentioned earlier, with me going through a cancer journey, the teachers as a whole were very accommodating. So if Allie said, hey, I'm going to be out of pocket because this is going on with mom, they were very supportive. Knowing that her teachers were praying for her and praying for us was huge. Another situation that happened along those lines is Allie was in a really bad car wreck this past year. She totaled her car and she fortunately walked away, but at the same time, she was out of class and we were on a trip and she had missed a couple of classes. And one of the sweetest things was that she was watching the archives so that she could catch up. And one of her teachers brought up the fact that she wasn't in class, and with her permission had explained why and prayed for her. Where else do you get that? I mean, really, where else do you get where the teachers know what's going on in your lives and are praying for you and supporting you? That's been a beautiful part of the experience.
With the wreck, my computer was dead. So I had shot a message to teachers and I'm like, I currently have no access to most of my materials until I can get to a IT guy. Can I have like a couple of days? So I was able to get everything submitted and they were really, really understanding through all of that. I'm going to Louisiana Tech University for industrial engineering with a minor in business. My high school education prepared me for engineering and business probably through just teaching us perseverance and teaching us like how to think for yourself, how to reason for yourself, because you need that in engineering because it's very much problem solving. You're doing a ton of how can I fix this in a way that's the most effective or maybe the easiest or simplest solution, or it might not be the simplest solution, but it might be the one that's going to last the longest. But classical makes you actually be willing to do the harder stuff where you're more willing to put in more of the work because you know the rewards you're going to reap are going to be much greater, kind of like with Omni. It's a ton of work, but the rewards you reap at the end of the year are very, very, very great.
A classical education, yes, it's given you the philosophy and it's given you the rhetoric and all that foundation. And going into the sciences, you've got to be able to write a paper and you've got to be able to cull information and put your ideas together in a format that is clear and precise. And I really feel like Allie's gotten that. I know the first time I read one of her papers for Omni and I thought, did you write this? Did you really write this? I was so impressed. One of my proudest comments that a teacher did on her comment form was they said, your intro gave me very high expectations and you exceeded them. Veritas teachers, their expectations are high and the kids definitely rise to the challenge.
One of the unusual things is Omnibus, which doesn't just teach you the knowledge of literature, of Christian history, of government, or whatever influenced it at that time. They build on each other and reinforce. So you're not just learning a knowledge base. And also, Allie came with a kind of weak science background, and she was able to catch up in her science and math. And I would say the quality of instruction has been good overall.